Okay. Good afternoon. Good afternoon po sa lahat. I hope we already had our lunch with the kind indulgence of our members and also resource persons. Congress is still trying to figure out how we can send merienda or lunch kasi in a regular meeting.
Chair, pwede sa Grab. Pwede, nakatumatanggap kami ng mga pansit, etc. Chair.
Pwede po card. Thank you po, Tita Evie. All right. Let's start our technical working group. This technical working group meeting dated May 27, 2021 is now called to order. Okay, we will do away with our invocation since we had an earlier meeting. Now we proceed to the opening statement of yours truly, Chairperson. Okay, good afternoon, my dear colleagues and honored resource persons. Welcome to today's technical working group meeting of the Committee on Revision of Laws. We are called upon once again to address some pressing issues which will define how the most vulnerable sectors of our society will be dealt with by our penal laws. As we deliberate today, the 7 measures which seek to amend the revised Penal Code of the Philippines on crimes against chastity. The crimes of adultery and concubinage fall under the crimes against chastity and are penalized under separate provisions in the revised Penal Code of the Philippines according to the gender of the offending spouse. While the law recognizes both criminal acts as violation of the marital vow, the law places a greater burden upon wives that husbands, due to disparity in the definition of the crimes, the evidentiary proof required, and the penalties imposed upon the offending parties. The crafters of the revised penal code would justify this by saying that adultery brings about the possibility of introducing spurious heirs into the family, thereby impairing the rights of the real heirs. The proposed measure which seek to repeal and amend these laws are anchored on the evident gender bias observed by many, as this allegedly violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 1987 Constitution, since the sex-based classification does not justify the setting of different elements for the same act of engaging in extramarital relations. On the other hand, proponents for repeal of Articles 202 and 341 of the Revised Penal Code on prostitution seek to address this issue by providing for the reduction of the incidence of prostitution by focusing on its demand side. They are calling for the shifting of criminal liability to clients, customers, or recipients of sexual services and the exploiters, such as pimps, traffickers, and brothel owners, rather than prostitutes whom they consider as the victims of the system of prostitution, who deserve protection, not punishment. The proposed measures on prostitution likewise seek for the establishment of support mechanisms for prostituted persons to get out of the system of prostitution and provide support services to victims, such as in the form of psychosocial counseling, legal assistance, and referral to appropriate training and government programs for an alternative livelihood. Now, before we further hear the purpose and intentions of these proposed measures from the authors themselves and the comments and positions that our resource persons would impart to us, I would like to thank everyone in advance for attending our meeting and for heeding our call to share your expertise and views on the proposed measures brought before our committee today. Again, good afternoon, and may our discussion be dynamic and our day productive. Thank you very much. I would like to recognize the presence of one of our authors, my dear Tita, Deputy Speaker, Tita Evie Scudero. And
Thank you, Chair.
thank you po for attending, Tita Evie. It seems that our other authors are not around, but their offices are logged in. So the chair welcomes them to share also in this discussion. And for our resource persons, may I call on our ComSec, Attorney Jean Dapola, to acknowledge and recognize them. Attorney Jean.
Good afternoon, everyone. For today's TWG, we have the following resource persons. From the Philippine National Police, we have Police Brigadier General Alessandro Abella. We also have Police Colonel Joy Tombok, Police Lieutenant Rowena Lambojo, Police Lieutenant Colonel Catherine Tamayo Cipriano, Police Colonel Primitivo Bayongan, and NUP Jacqueline De La Cruz. From the Philippine Commission on Women, we have Chairperson Sandra Montano and Mr. Armando Orsilia. From the Commission on Human Rights, we have Attorney Gemma Parojino, the Director of Policy Advisory Office. We also have from CHR, Division Chief, Centers for Gender Equality and Women's Human Rights, Attorney Crisis Shapina Tualia Rubin. From the UP Law Center, we have Professor Agbayani. From the Department of Justice, we have Attorney Albert Abraganil and Attorney Normina Hajula Tadipa. From the Public Attorney's Office, we have Attorney Christopher Loren Agate. We also have a representative from the Office of Kong Ria Fariñas, Kong Arlene Brosas, and Kong Aleta Suarez, Your Honor. That will be all, Madam Chair.
Thank you, ComSec, Attorney Jean. Okay. For today's technical working group, we will deliberate and discuss the following measures. House Bill number 1144, an act decriminalizing adultery and concubinage, repealing for these purposes Articles 333 and 334 of the Revised Penal Code, by Representatives Arlene Brosas, Sarah Jane Ilago, Euphemia Kafemia Colyamat, Ferdinand Gaite, and Carlos Izagane Zarate. Another one is House Bill number 3989, or an act amending Republic Act number 3815, otherwise known as the Revised Penal Code, redefining the crime of adultery and concubinage and providing penalties therefor, by Representative Aleta C. Suarez. Next is House Bill number 8523, an act amending Articles 333 and 344 and repealing Article 334 of the Revised Penal Code, eliminating gender bias in adultery and concubinage, by Representative Luis Raymond L. Rey Villafuerte. Another one is House Bill number 9232, or an act amending Articles 333 and 344 and repealing Article 334 of the Revised Penal Code, eliminating gender bias in adultery and concubinage, by Representative Rufus Rodriguez. Next is House Bill number 577, an act defining and penalizing marital infidelity, amending the Revised Penal Codes, by Representative Eduardo Brother Eddie Villanueva, Domingo Rivera, Joy Mayra Tambunting, and Ria Cristina Farinas. Another one is House Bill number 1149, an act repealing Articles 202 and 343 of the Revised Penal Code and instituting a system of protection for victims of prostitution and other purposes, by Representatives Arlene Brosa, Sarah Jane Ilago, Euphemia Kafemia Colyamat, Ferdinand Gaite, Ria Cristina G. Farinas. And House Bill number 2335, an act addressing the system of prostitution, imposing penalties on its perpetrators, providing protective measures and support services for its victims, repealing for the purposes Articles 202 and 341 of Act number 3815 as amended, otherwise known as the Revised Penal Code, by Representative or Deputy Speaker Evelina Escudero and Joy Mayra Tambunting. So we have 4 bills: 6513, 8989, 577, which directly focus on the marital infidelity provision in the Revised Penal Code, while House Bill number 1149 and 2335 has discussed it included in their bill, also a portion on marital infidelity, but mainly focusing on the provision on prostitution. So I gather that our committee has already given all our resource persons today the copy of those bills for your comments and suggestion. Just in case that I may not be able to see who are raising their hands, kindly introduce yourself and your office so you can be duly recognized by the chair. Okay, before I call on our resource persons, I would like to acknowledge also the presence of one of our authors, Representative Arlene Brosas from Party List Gabriela. Good afternoon, Kong Arlene.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Thank
Magandang
you for
hapon
attending
po.
TWG. Okay. Comsec, you have a copy of the matrix. You want to, post natin sa screen. so everybody can see it. Will have sexual intercourse with the man, not her husband, and by the man who has carnal knowledge of her, knowing to be married, even if the marriage be subsequently declared void. Adultery shall be punished by prison correctional in its medium and maximum periods. If the person guilty of adultery committed this offense while being abandoned without justification by the offended spouse, the penalty next lower in degree than that provided in the next preceding paragraph shall be imposed. So also Article 334 on concubinage, penalty of distierro. Okay, in also subject of deliberation today is the Article 341, the penalty of prisión mayor, a white slave trade. The penalty of prisión mayor in its medium and maximum period shall be imposed upon any person who, in any manner or under any pretext, shall engage in the business or shall profit by prostitution or shall enlist the services of other for the purpose of prostitution as amended by Batas Pambansa bilang 186. And also Article 334, prosecution of the crimes of adultery, concubinage, seduction, abduction, rape, and acts of lasciviousness. Secondly, scroll up the screen so everybody can see it. Okay, the prosecution of crimes under Article 344. Okay. The crimes of adultery and concubinage shall not be prosecuted except upon a complaint filed by the offended spouse. The offended party cannot institute criminal prosecution without including both the guilty parties if they are both alive, nor in any case if he shall have consented or pardoned the offenders. The offenses of seduction, abduction, rape, or acts of lasciviousness shall not be prosecuted except upon a complaint filed by the offended party or her parents, grandparents, or guardian, nor in any case if the offender has been expressly pardoned by the above-named person as the case may be. In cases of seduction, abduction, acts of lasciviousness, and rape, the marriage of the offender with the offended party shall extinguish the criminal action or remit the penalty already imposed upon him. The provisions of this paragraph shall also be applicable to the co-principals, accomplices, and accessories after the fact of the above-mentioned crimes. So if you look at your screen, we have on the left the existing provisions under the revised penal code, which all are bills subject of deliberation today or subject of the technical working group meeting, seek to amend. On the right side is the particular House bill number and their proposed amendment to these particular articles. Before we proceed with our resource person, may I ask if our authors would like to give their preliminary message or statement? Or do you want us to just go through the meeting and then we'll discuss each and every amendment? Kong Arlene?
Yes, Madam Chair. We're talking about the Article 333 and 334, right?
Mm-hmm.
Madam Chair, yes.
We do.
Just to say a few things, Madam Chair, because it has been pending for a long time now in the House of Congress. And we have been active in the Gabriela Women's Party in particularly decriminalizing adultery and concubinage and repealing for the purpose of Articles 333 and 334 of the revised Penal Code. So under this RPC, extramarital affairs committed by married men and women are both considered criminal acts, but are not treated equally under Article 333 of the RPC. A wife can be convicted of a crime of adultery for a single act of sexual intercourse with a man who is not her husband, while under Article 334, the husband can only be convicted of a crime of concubinage if he is found guilty of any of the following: keeping a mistress in the conjugal dwelling, having sexual intercourse under scandalous circumstances with a woman who is not his wife, or cohabiting with her in any other place. Now, the husband needs only to prove that his wife engaged in a sexual intercourse with a man, not her husband. Well, the wife needs to show that her husband's sexual intercourse with another woman was done under scandalous circumstances. And under the third circumstance, when concubinage is committed, it is not enough that the husband is keeping a paramour in another house. It must be shown that the husband lives with the paramour in that house. Articles 333 and 334 of the RPC, which criminalize marital infidelity, that of having sexual intercourse with a person other than his or her spouse, clearly discriminate against women's spouses. The abolition of this stricter moral standard and fidelity on married women vis-a-vis their male counterparts, which a standard was set in the 1930s when the RPC took effect, is long overdue. Consultations with and cases referred to Gabriela showed that in practice, Articles 333 and 334 are often resorted only as bargaining suits to get the other party in a nullity petition to cooperate or to give in support negotiations. These suits, while pursued in the initial stages, are often withdrawn or dismissed. Whereas separated or abandoned wives who have no remedy under the law in the absence of a divorce law are always under a constant threat of suit from their estranged husbands. They are blackmailed by their estranged husbands through Article 333 of the RPC. And while they also have a ground to file under Article 334, they face the difficulty of proving the crime due to the inherent difficulty in the standards set by the law. In many cases, women who are faced by these threats are forced to forego legitimate custodial claims of their children, while some are forced to give up their claims over conjugal properties, assets, and the like. Considering that these provisions in the RPC discriminate against the results to more difficulty for women, and considering further that women are amply protected under Republic Act 9262, which criminalizes violence against women and their children, Gabriela Women's Party seeks the repeal of Articles 333 and 334. And hence, the urgent passage of this bill is earnestly sought. So maraming salamat, Madam Chair, sa pagbibigay ng oras. At ngayon nga po ay humantong na tayo sa PWG. At sana matapos natin to, Madam Chair, dahil magtatapos na rin po ang ating 18th Congress. Kaya kailangan po natin sanang madaliin yung ating PWG nung parating ito sa plenaryo. Maraming salamat, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Arlene. Oo nga daw, mahaba na nga daw yata ang pinagdaanan nito for
Madam,
for possible repeal, pero hindi pa na-discuss masyado.
Madam Chair, from
Please.
PCW po, may I be allowed to speak po?
Are you already speaking about this, the proposed measures?
Not yet po. May question lang po ako na baka maganda po nating isettle po muna. Pwede po.
Okay, but can I call you after Honorable Escudero? If our Deputy Speaker wants to make a statement with respect to her bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Evie.
Madam Chair, sorry. Madam Chair, House Bill 2335, an Anti-Prostitution Act. May the explanatory note be my sponsorship for this particular bill. However, Madam Chair, I would just like to point out several salient points. Like, for example, this bill defines the acts of prostitution with corresponding punishment and penalties. It also provides for assurance of deportation if the offender is a foreigner, and exempts the victim from filing fees if he or she decides to file a separate civil action Penalties collected under this bill, along with the properties and proceeds, shall accrue to the trust fund to be used exclusively for programs that will prevent prostitution and help victims regain their normal lives. The bill also prohibits authorities to use entrapment method when the same would involve sexual acts as defined under the bill. It also provides for the standards and requirements for hotels, motels, and lodging houses, renaming and expanding the functions of Interagency Council Against Trafficking, or ICAT, to Interagency Council Against Trafficking and Prostitution, or the ICATP. With this, Madam Chair, I would like to have this immediately passed. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you po, Honorable Escudero. Thank you, Tita Evie. With the kind indulgence of our Deputy Speaker, pwede po bang we'll just discuss first the marital infidelity before we go to the provision on prostitution, Tita Evie?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you po. Before I call on our resource persons, Mr. Arcilia, you want to say something?
Yes po.
Before we start our deliberation? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you po, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I would just like to ask po, how do we go about the proposed bills on adultery and concubinage? I understand our goal for today is to come up with a substitute bill for the adultery and concubinage. But I think because there are two issues that are not the same in the proposed bill. One is decriminalizing adultery and concubinage, and the other is equalizing the penalties both on adultery and concubinage. So I think before we could go on with every provisions and entries of the proposed bill, maybe we need to know how do we which one that we will proceed or
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Arcilia. Yes, we have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bills on the same topic, but with a different intention. The bill of Honorable Brosas seeks to really repeal these two provisions. However, we still have to deliberate also on the other bills submitted to us for discussion. And as I was looking at the other proposed measures, the one submitted or sponsored by Honorable Brother Eddie Villanueva seeks to remove both provisions, remove the provision on adultery, remove the provision on concubinage, and create one provision under the title marital infidelity. Could you show it in the screen, Comsec? Mahina ba yung ating connection? Anyway, kindly just send it to the chat box. I think it's already in the chat box. If you look at our chat box, our Comsec has already uploaded the copy of that matrix earlier shown. Siguro ang gawin muna natin, since we already know the intention of Honorable Brosas and other sponsors on the repeal, i-hold muna natin yung, kasi total repeal yung sa kanila eh. Tama ba, Kong Arlene? Talagang removal na nung provision ng on adultery and concubinage. Is that correct, Honorable Brosas? Okay. While that their proposed measure is for the repeal, we still need to discuss the
Yes,
other.
Madam Chair. Sorry, I was opening the
Siguro
matrix.
ang worry lang siguro ng ating mga resource person kasi meron tayong proposal for total repeal nung tsaka removal ng two provisions, and then here are the other proposals by some of our sponsors to to just rename it. Hindi na i-separate yung adultery and concubinage and just make it marital infidelity. So,
Yes, Madam Chair, I yield to the wisdom of our chair, no, with this. Madam Chair, ang sa akin lang, parang if we're not going to discuss pa this repeal, ano, we are glad naman to listen to the other proponents of the bill, and we would like to participate pa rin naman kahit na iba po yung bill na ano namin. And I believe, Madam Chair, kasi our way of doing this is usually we have a bill. Before we get to the sub-bill, we have a bill na una nating pattern na. So, Madam Chair, which is which? Yun ang tanong ko. Or are we going to, with the matrix that you've done, are we going to just collapse them together? Parang ganyan? Or
ang iniisip ng committee, Honorable Brosas, is i-collapse natin yung dalawang provisions and create only one provision on marital infidelity. So doon na lang tayo mag-start sa discussion natin.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Honorable Brosas, Kong Arlene. Now, let's start our discussion. May we call on our resource speakers, resource persons. We start with, do you want to start the discussion, Mr. Arcilia?
Sure po, Madam Chair.
Give us your comment and suggestions.
Yes po. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. May I present our position po for the proposed bills on adultery and concubinage. Actually, Madam Chair, the PCW supports the proposed bill authored by Representatives Arlene Brosas, Franz Castro, Sara Elago, Eufema Kilamat, Carlos Zarate, and Ferdinand Gate, which seeks to repeal Articles 333 and 334 of the revised Penal Code. But since we will be discussing the other bills that are being proposed, on HB 577 proposal to include ascendants and descendants and relatives to file case on marital infidelity, the PCW highlights Article 17 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, ICCPR, which the Philippines ratified in 1986 and states that no one shall be subjected to arbitrary or unlawful interference with his or her privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to unlawful attacks on his or her honor and reputation. We deem that the participation of parties other than the aggrieved individuals is not necessary because marriage is a contract between the husband and wife, and therefore any violation in relation to this should be resolved by them. That's our comment for the other proposed bills on adultery and concubinage. Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arcilia, from Philippine Commission on Women. May we hear from our other resource persons? Ay, saan na yung aking list? Ay, ito. Sorry. All right. May I call on the Director for Policy Advisory Office of the Commission on Human Rights, Attorney Gemma Parohinog.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Thank you for inviting
Good
us.
afternoon. Yes.
The Commission on Human Rights have this statement. The revised penal code currently defines and penalizes marital infidelity depending on the sex of the offending spouse, placing greater burden and heavier penalties on the wife. The Commission on Human Rights as a Gender and Development Ombudsman fully supports the House Bill number 1144, which seeks to repeal Articles 333 on adultery and Article 334 on concubinage. and dismiss all pending case and release all persons serving sentence for violation of said articles prior to the amendment of the RPC. United Nations report on the working group on the issues of discrimination against women in law and in practice dated April 2015 has raised its concern on the criminalization and penalization of adultery, the enforcement of which is prejudicial to women. The working group added that sexual relations between consenting adults should not be penalized as it violates Article 17, rapists who marry their victims, and laws that criminalize adultery. In addition, the Human Rights Committee General Comment number 28 state that laws which impose more severe penalties to women than on men for adultery violate the right to equal protection. The Commission also supports House Bill number 1149 and 2335, which seeks to decriminalize prostitution and provide better protection to persons exploited in prostitution, thereby repealing Articles 202 and 341 of the revised penal code. These bills commit to end the continuing sexual exploitation of women, men, and children and all forms of gender-based violence, not by condemning and stigmatizing victims of prostitution, but by addressing the structures that perpetuate sexual exploitation. These bills also highlight the need to protect the identity and privacy and to facilitate reintegration of persons exploited in prostitution back into society, providing counseling, free legal services, shelter, medical or psychological services, and livelihood training. As state party to the Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, the country has committed to take all appropriate measures, including legislation, to suppress all forms of traffic in women and exploitation of prostitution of women. The Commission supports all efforts to end sexual exploitation and gender-based with the discussion of the other bills, which does not totally repeal 333 or 334. We will submit our position or paper at a later date with respect to the other bills as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Attorney Gemma Parhinog from the Commission on Human Rights. Yes, your originality we'll wait for your opinion, opposition paper on that.
We will participate with the discussion today if that is the decision of the committee to
Yes, that's
proceed with the discussion. We will participate with the discussion today.
okay. Thank you, Attorney Gemma. Next, may we hear from the Centers for Gender Equality. It's also CHR.
That's the same.
That's the same, Attorney Gemma. Okay, now we hear from the Department of Justice. Is it Attorney Albert Abragan, second?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Your Honors.
Afternoon, Albert.
We would like to manifest first that we have submitted our position paper on House Bills number 577 and 1144, Madam Chair. Essentially, our position on House Bill number 577, Madam Chair, we find the proposed measure to be in line with the policy under the Constitution to ensure the fundamental equality between men and women. And the proposed measure likewise supports the policy under Republic Act 9710, otherwise known as the Magna Carta of Women, against discrimination towards women. So, Madam Chair, we interpose no objection and support the enactment of House Bill number 577 into law.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Attorney Abragan from the Department of Justice. Next, can we hear from the representative from the UP Law Center, Professor Agbayani?
Good afternoon, Chairperson.
Good afternoon, Professor Agbayani.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, we've just received the notice and the links to the bills. So I think we'll need time to study this and come up, and we will submit our position paper at a later date. But in general, we agree naman in principle with the direction towards decriminalizing and or, well, that's tricky din eh. Either the direction of either decriminalizing or treating both adultery, equalizing rather the penalties for adultery and concubinage. So we'll have to look into the particulars of that, as well as the other bills and the bills also on prostitution. That's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that comment, Attorney Agbayani. So we will wait for your official position paper on this particular proposed measures. But thank you also for helping us with the OSAIC bills.
Yes, ma'am. We're also working on that. We're also working on that right now.
Thank you so much. May we hear from the representative from the PNP? Yeah, Brigadier General Abella.
Yes, ma'am. Magandang hapon po.
Magandang hapon
Yes,
po.
ma'am. To our chairwoman, ma'am. Magandang hapon po. Good to see you again, ma'am. Chairperson, Representative Cheryl De La Montaña, ma'am. And to other representatives present po, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. To our esteemed committee members and resource persons, once again, good afternoon, and thank you for inviting us to deliberate proposed revisions of the revised penal code that are seen to be no longer reasonable in the present times. Well, the PNP has not yet officially submitted our position paper on the matters under consideration. Our unit, the Women and Children Protection Center, would like to give thoughts on the proposed revisions as follows. We concur with the rationale behind proposed revisions to Articles 333 and 334 of the revised penal code on adultery and concubinage as stated in House Bills number 577. We believe that these criminal provisions are gender biased in favor of husbands, deeply rooted in patriarchal and sexist beliefs that are no longer relevant today. In this regard, we agree with the nomenclature marital infidelity as replacement to adultery and concubinage, and the general idea that both husband and wife should be subjected to the same standard of conduct in their marital lives. We have reservations, however, on the proposal to include relatives within the fourth civil degree of consanguinity as offenders in the crime of marital infidelity, as we believe that the crime is personal to the spouses and the option to be offended or not in a spouse's marital infidelity should be the personal decision of the other spouse alone. We also agree with the proposals to criminalize prostitution, decriminalize prostitutes, and institute a system of protection to victims of prostitution under House Bill number 1149. Noting that this is consistent with our existing legislations on trafficking in persons and worst form of child labor, we would like to also suggest that the bill be tackled vis-a-vis Republic Act 9208 as amended and Republic Act 9231 for purposes of harmony and clarity. So once again, thank you very much for soliciting our comments on the bills. We will submit a more detailed discussion of our position on the bills provisions in an official position paper to be submitted later on by the PNP. Ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Brigadier General Abella. Thank you also for actively participating in all our other meetings, including the OSAIC bills,
Yes, ma'am.
which the committee is now refining, and hopefully we can already submit it to the mother committee. But in the meantime, we are discussing repeal of Article 333, 334, and 334. May we call on representative from DOJ? Sino?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Attorney Agatep? Oh, Attorney Abragan. Apologize. Okay.
Yes, hello.
Yes.
Attorney Agatep, Madam Chair,
Okay. Are you from the
from Public Attorney's Office.
Public Attorney's Office? Yes. Okay. Go ahead, Attorney Agatep.
Yes, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Your Honors, and all resource speakers. With regard to proposed House Bills 577, 1144, 3989, and 8253, which propose to decriminalize and or repeal provisions on adultery and concubinage, particularly eliminating gender bias. Public Attorney's Office will yield to the wisdom of the Honorable Chair and the members insofar as how the provisions will be repealed and or amended. Finally, in relation to House Bills 1149 and 2335, which aims to protect victims of prostitution, Public Attorney's Office is in full support of the said provisions or of the said House Bills. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your comment, Attorney Agatep. Later on, we will read that specific proposal by our sponsors or authors. But I will listen first to our resource persons this afternoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Attorney Agatep.
Thank you.
Okay. Those who would like to give their comments, you can either raise your hand and let the chair know if you want to speak. Do we have other resource persons, Attorney Jane? May we call on from the Department of Justice? Attorney Abragan, second.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon, Attorney Abragan.
Yes, we have already mentioned our position a while ago, Madam Chair, with respect to 577. So we do not have any objection, Madam Chair,
Okay,
with respect to 577. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Abragan. Do we have any other resource persons in attendance? If not, okay, thank you all for your comments. Let us see and already flashed in your screen the proposed amendment by it states marital infidelity is committed by any married person who shall have sexual intercourse with another person who is not his or her legitimate spouse, even if the marriage be subsequently declared void, and by the person whom he or she has sexual intercourse with, knowing the guilty spouse to be married. marital infidelity shall be punished by prison correctional in its medium and maximum periods. If the person guilty of marital infidelity committed this offense while being abandoned without justification by the offended spouse for a period of 3 years, the penalty next lower in degree than that provided above shall be imposed. Muslims and members of indigenous peoples communities who actively and continuously practice since time immemorial customs and traditions allowing multiple spouses shall be held liable for marital infidelity if they engage in sexual intercourse with any person other than the official spouse's article, House Bill 577 seeks to do. Are we all in agreement with the definition of marital infidelity? Comsec, nag-invite pa tayo from our Muslim brothers? So wala. Okay. Dito muna lang tayo sa are we all and in its place create a new provision with the title of marital infidelity? Okay po ba sa ating lahat yan?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Honorable Brosas.
since we are in the position of repealing and we would like it to be decriminalized, we don't agree. So, Madam Chair, for the record.
Yes. Ganito na lang gawin natin, Honorable Arlene. This is what I'm thinking. Since we have two talagang separate, parang magkaiba na mga proposed measures on the same topic, dito sa ating technical working group will have first come up with a specific definition on the bills proposed by Honorable Villanueva. And then the committee will create two reports, technical working group reports, for submission to the mother committee. And then on the mother, once we have our regular meeting in the mother committee, doon na lang natin pagbotohan kung ano ba talaga. Total repeal ba talaga o change lang ng name nitong nomenclature nitong dalawang provisions?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Maraming salamat.
You,
So, isi-separate na natin. So, this bill lang, you will be deliberating on this bill only. Then we will deliberate on the bill that we have, no? Para hindi magulo. Tapos, dalawang committee report to the mother committee.
Yes.
Right?
And
Okay, thank you.
the
Maraming
members
salamat po.
decide which one we will allow and approve. Either the total repeal or just a simple amendment.
Okay.
Okay.
Sige po. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Honorable Arlene. Okay. May Honorable Arlene, akong Arlene, pwede bang siguro
Yes.
lang for purposes of for record purposes lang natin dito sa ating meeting. Yung proposal ninyo na total repeal ng dalawang provisions, does it mean na if a spouse, either the husband or the wife, had sexual relations with another person other than their legitimate husbands and wives, wala na bang, hindi na tayo mag-i-impose ng penalty on that aspect?
Yes, Madam Chair. Actually, there is a section here that says all persons serving sentence for violation of the provisions of 333 and 334 prior to its amendment shall be immediately released upon effectivity of this act. So therefore, Madam Chair, we're thinking that
Talagang
Oo,
hindi
talagang,
penalty.
yes.
Okay. Medyo madugo ang discussion natin yan sa Mother Committee later on. Pero I think tama din naman, ano? Kasi sa napapanahon na medyo obsolete na itong dalawang provision, especially that provision on adultery. Kasi nga naman, di ba?
Oh, and by the way, Madam Chair, I was listening to the resource persons, and all of them, mostly, no, all of them said that they are for the repeal. Even the PNP said that they want it to be repealed. I don't know if they've conferred with the president with this, with the position of the president. But I heard the resource person, the PCW, which is under the office of the president, and the PMP saying that they agree to our proposal, House Bill number 1144.
Okay.
And most of our most of our resource persons said that.
Oo nga kasi talagang kahit nung law school pa namin alam namin obsolete na itong dalawang provisions na ito.
Di ba mainit na discussion sa law school yan?
Kaya lang at that time wala kami magawa kasi nag-aaral pa lang di ba? But now we have the opportunity to make changes and at least make it adapt to the current situation.
Yes. Situation. And I yield to the wisdom of the chair talaga. Thank you so much, Chairman Deloso. Actually, the mere fact na hini-hear natin itong it says so much, no, para sa mga kababaihan na nangangailangan ng remedy or reprieve from this kind of this kind of measures. No?
Oo nga. Ang hirap kasi pag doon sa adultery, sa babae, single. Pag-aralan namin sa law school yan A single concubinage, kailangan pang i-prove mo na binabahay talaga. Yung other woman ay napakahirap kang gawin. So hindi balance. So napaka-bias nitong dalawang provisions. But for the purpose of this committee, we understand your position on this. So katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, we will present this to the Mother Committee for voting siguro kung ano talaga ang pipiliin natin, either the repeal or just the amendment. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Maraming salamat.
Muna tayo sa amendment. Okay, sa ating mga resource persons, ito po yung proposal ng ating author, Brother Eddie, sa amendment ng dalawang provisions, marital infidelity. Any comment other than the ones that you already stated? So kung wala, we will just take it as is. Yung bang ibang bills natin, Attorney Jean, ay similar to Brother Eddie? Okay. Except for the additional paragraph on the Muslim brothers. Okay. All right. So, yun na lang ang gagawin natin. Attorney Jean, we will have two TWG meeting reports. One for the repeal and one for the amendment. Okay? Wala na ba na tayong ibang concerns dito, ano? Okay. So, we'll wait for that committee report and then we'll schedule a meeting for further discussion on the Mother Committee. Now we proceed to on the prostitution. Okay, prostitution. Ito ang bill proposed by our beautiful tita, Deputy Speaker Evie Escudero.
Hi, DS Evie.
Hi, Congress Brosas, Arlene.
So,
come on.
who is raising hand? Meron ba? wants to make a comment on the proposed bill by Deputy Speaker Escudero?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Kong Arlene, go ahead.
may I also deliver my speech on the House bill, because we also have a House bill on that issue.
Okay, go ahead. Please,
House Bill number 1149. It's an act repealing Articles 202 and 341 of the Revised Penal Code and instituting a system of protection for victims of prostitution and for other purposes.
What House bill is that, Honorable Arlene?
It's House Bill number 1149,
1149.
an act repealing Articles 202.
Oh, yes,
and
please.
341.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, majority of prostituted Filipino women who are mostly less than 20 years of age or minors originate from the provinces and are from poor families. This is the premise of the bill filed, Madam Chair. On the other hand, owners and managers of establishments as well as their customers, mostly men, being major players, are left off the hook. Prostitution should be seen as a system whereby women's and children's bodies and their sexuality are commodified and exploited to satisfy men's sexual needs. Society sees children in prostitution as victims and quickly condemns those who victimize them. However, it does not have the same view of prostituted women. It mainly sees adult women as free, autonomous persons who enter into individual and private transactions with their customers. It automatically assumes that an adult woman is on equal footing with the other party involved in the transaction and therefore free to set the conditions of that transaction at pagkalakal sa katawan ng babae. Direkta man o di direktang pagbili at pagbebenta sa kanyang katawan. In fact, we have relevant data on that. 99.9% ng biktima ng prostitusyon ay galing sa mga pamilyang mahihirap. Biktima ng trafficking o displacement, karamihan ay menor de edad. As of 2019, mayroon tayong tinatawag na walking street sa Angeles City, Pampanga, kung saan may higit 15,000 kababaihan ang nagtatrabaho bilang waitresses, dancers at entertainers na binabayaran ng 170 pesos kada gabi. Karamihan sa kababaihang ito ay galing sa Visayas at Mindanao. Noong nakaraang 2018 naman, meron tayong human aquarium sa Subic kung saan pinipili ng mga customer ang kababaihan behind glass walls na para bang sila ay mga alagaing hayop sa pet store, mga isda sa aquarium. Mayroon pang iba't ibang forma. Call girls at taxi girls sa mga red light district tulad ng Malate at Makati. Prostitution o mga estudyanteng nagbibigay sexual na aliw para makapag-aral. Latest na kaso ay noong 2017 na estudyante ng FEU. Meron ding akyat barko o kababaihang kinakalakal para sa mga seamen. Meron ding palit bigas, prostitution in rural areas. It was first documented following the 1992 eruption of Mount Pinatubo in Central Luzon and is continuing until now. Some range from paying 100 to 700 pesos, while in some cases, these sexual favors were done in exchange for a cup of coffee. Next incidence was at the struck areas of Typhoon Yolanda. So ano pong salient points ng bill namin? Uphold Article number 2, Section 14 of the Constitution of the Philippines. The state recognizes the role of women in nation building and shall ensure the fundamental equality before the law of women and men by also responding to international commitments. First, the UN Convention for the Suppression of the Traffic in Persons and of the Exploitation of the Prostitution of Others. the UN Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women General Recommendation number 19, the International Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women, IDEVAL, the Beijing Platform for Action, or BPFA, adopted in 1995, defined trafficking in women and forced prostitution as a form of violence against women. And the UN Secretary General's Bulletin in 2003 on special measures for protection from sexual exploitation and sexual abuse. The second, ang kasama po doon sa mga salient points ng bill, declare the state's commitment in ending the continuing sexual exploitation of women and children and other GBVs, especially now at the time of OSEC. No? Nagdi-discuss na tayo ng OSEC. Yung gender-based violence po yung sinasabi natin dito na GBV. Prostitution is a human rights violation. It should be likened to the system of slavery. Therefore, those in slave-like situations should not be criminalized based on age or choice. Women and children are victimized by prostitution, not the perpetrators of it. Defines prostitution, persons exploited in prostitution and sexually abused in prostitution dens. Tapos punishes owners, managers, operators, directors, and officers of establishments as well as pimps instead of those prostituted even attempt to commit prostitution will be penalized. So the penalties are, if the person prostituted is a child, it shall be life imprisonment. Anyone guilty of prostituting women may be imprisoned from 12 years to 17 years, depending on the gravity and succeeding violations. And the fine ranges from 500,000 pesos to 2 million pesos. If offender is a foreigner, must be immediately deported after service of sentence and permanently banned from entry into country. And public officers found guilty shall suffer same fine and imprisonment, and additionally temporary to absolute disqualification. And hence, Madam Chair, the immediate passage of this bill ay ipinananawagan namin sa Gabriela Women's Party. Maraming salamat, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Brosas. We have with us here today for deliberation 2 bills. One filed by Honorable Escudero on House Bill number 2335 and House Bill 1149. However, hindi po yata kami nakagawa ng matrix on the 2 bills kasi akala natin mahaba yung discussion natin on the adultery and concubinage. Kaya hindi kaagad na i-prepare. May we hear from our resource persons?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
before we ask the resource persons to give their siguro it's better that we discuss this in a separate TWG. Kasi parang ibang-iba ito dun sa adultery bills that we are taking up right now. Madam Chair.
Yes, actually noted po at Tita Evie. I think you're correct. Para po makapag-ready din lahat. Kasi as I was looking through the okay, thank
Siguro,
you.
siguro another TWG for this particular for these 2 bills, Madam Chair. Suggestion ko lang.
I agree. I second the motion na rin. I agree sa ating.
Sige, I will second the motion.
Totoo po kasi. Kasi po, we have a very long day. We have a discussion on the different days commemorating declaration of special non-working holidays, special working holidays. So akala po namin medyo mahaba kaya hindi na include yung pag-create ng matrix on these 2 bills. But I think these 2 bills as you proposed are very, very important para po ma-address natin yung current problems with our fragmented laws on prostitution and protection of children. Kaya po kami in the committee, we are trying to figure out how we can harmonize all laws on the protection of children from the OSAIC to the rape bills para po hindi magkaroon ng conflict with respect to the enforcement of laws later on.
Yeah.
So,
Madam Chair,
yes,
from PCW po.
yeah, Mr. Arcilia, go ahead.
Chair, before we proceed po, just a quick reply lang din po with regards to the decriminalization of adultery and concubinage po. You also asked after if we decriminalize kung wala na po talagang maisasampang kaso. Actually, we already provided it in our possession, but may we also raise this in this meeting that actually we have options naman din po as stated in our possession po. Among the options we are suggesting to be included in the repeal of adultery and concubinage is yung remedy po ng mga offended spouse under Article 26 of the Civil Code. They can file a complaint for damages against the paramour or mistress for meddling with or disturbing their private life or family relations. Another po is yung remedy ng offended wife as defined under RA 9262 or the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children, a special law that protects women and their children from abuses and violence by their intimate partners. So after we decriminalize the adultery and concubinage, we can go through this remedies, available laws as remedies for after the proposed law will be proposed bill will turn into law. We can avail naman po this available law, and we are suggesting it to be included in the proposed bill of repeal of adultery and concubinage. That's all, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that comment and suggestion, Mr. Arcilia.
Madam Chair, may I ask the PCW?
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I would like to ask yung PCW, sa remedies na yun na binabanggit ninyo, medyo familiar ako sa 9262, no? Pero sa first na binanggit ninyo, yung sa partner, gaano kadalas yung or gaano kadami yung mga cases na ganun? Na dinudulog po doon sa remedy na yon. Yung mistress ano, I understand. Yun yung sabi niyo.
Mistress or paramour po. Actually, Madam Chair, right now we don't have the data. When we prepared po, actually the position paper, that particular part came from our legal officers. So we will seek further advice from our legal officers on the details of the proposed provision, and maybe we can send it to the committee po. That's all, Madam Chair.
So walang data, Madam Chair, no? So wala tayong data kung ilan yung
Wala pa yata silang data ngayong araw na ito, but they will consult their legal team.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yun lang.
With the question of Honorable Brosas, Mr. Arcilia, maybe when we already have our regular meeting on the proposed measures, kindly give us a copy of those data requested by Honorable Brosas.
Will do po, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Kasi sa aking pagkakaalam lang, wala naman akong data, no?
Yes po.
Parang wala yatang nagpa-file under the new civil code. as far as I know, ano. But we will wait for that data, Mr. Arcilia.
Yes po.
Okay. As I have stated earlier on our proposed measures regarding the amendment and repeal of Article 333 and 334, this committee will be preparing two reports. One is for the repeal of both provisions, and one is for the amendment of those two provisions by collapsing the two articles and creating one under the title marital infidelity. And then we will have further discussion on the mother committee. Okay na sa atin yun, Kong Arlene, Tita Evie.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, now
Thank you, Madam Chair.
with that, we close our discussion on those proposed measures. With respect to the amendment to the provision on prostitution, as suggested by our Deputy Speaker, Tita Evie, we will set another meeting for a particular TWG only on those particular topic, on prostitution only. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Before we adjourn, just for record purposes, I would like to ask the DOJ, PAO, or PNP on how many complaints prosecuted or convicted receive with respect to adultery and concubinage. Para po sa meeting natin sa Mother Committee. Could you prepare that for this committee's record? From the DOJ?
Yes, Madam Chair. Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. From PAO, Public Attorney's Office?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you. From PNP?
Yes, Madam Chair, we will submit it in the soonest, ma'am.
Okay po. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, sa ating pong mga resource persons, and of course, our authors and honorable colleague members of this committee. Salamat po sa pag-participate at pag-attend ng ating committee kahit na medyo nagutuman tayo ng konti dahil hindi pa natin ma-avail yung Grab delivery para sa ating mga committee. Kailangan pa yata natin ng memorandum of agreement, ano?
Nag-aantay pa rin, Madam Chair.
Po tayo ng paraan, Tita Evie.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
Madam
Okay,
Chair.
with our motion, and duly seconded, this meeting is hereby adjourned.
Prepare mo, ano.
Thank you,
Tita
everyone.
Evie, sinisipon ka na naman.
Thank you, Madam
Tita
Chair.
Evie.
Thank you, ma'am.
Kumain
Thank you,
na ako
ma'am.
ice cream.
Kaya
Thank you,
naman
Madam
pala.
Chair. Thank you, everyone.
Sabi ko, bakit sinisipon na naman to siya?
Thank you, Madam
Tita
Chair.
Evie.
Salamat din po. Thank you. Thank you.
Salamat. Salamat.
Salamat po. Salamat. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Think positive but be negative. Ano po?
particularly Section 2B, which says that a verified complaint filed by any citizen upon a resolution of endorsement by any member thereof must be present in that complaint. Number 2, Section 3, second paragraph, it says that an impeachment complaint is verified only by an affidavit complying with the following requirements: that the affiant must aware that he has read the complaint. Second, that all allegations therein are true and correct of his personal knowledge or based on authentic records. These two will be the bone of contention in our proceeding today. The third paragraph disallows allegation based on information and belief, allegation based on knowledge, information, and belief. And if that would be the case, the complaint will be treated as an signed impeachment